This is Kent Hance, best storyteller in Texas. We have a real honor today, and we got former Senator Phil Gramm, who I served in Congress with, and he served in the House and served in the Senate, and I still say he's one of the smartest guys that ever served in the House and or the Senate, and was a University of Georgia graduate, got his PhD from the Terry School of Business in Georgia, and then he taught at Texas A&M for, how long were you teaching at A&M?
12 years.
12 years, and the result, he became a hardcore Aggie. He lives and dies with them, and I always appreciate him. And he's still a little Georgia fan, and he's got a lot of friends who are Texas Tech Red Raiders, and he's been very good to the Red Raiders as well. And Senator, we appreciate your friendship and your being on the show today. And
listen, no more than I appreciate you, Bruce Kent.
Well, that's great. The reason we're interviewing you today is that you had an article in the Wall Street Journal in the last few days called "The Biggest Fraud in Welfare," and everyone's kind of focused on what's happened in Minnesota and the complete runaway fraud that happened that should have been stopped early on, but was not. But you're talking about something that's even bigger than what happened. And so give us a little background on it and some of the studies you've done. And you've written a couple of books on it. And I would like for you at least say something about those books so people can get them if they want to.
The book is entitled "The Myth of American Inequality." And one of the things the book looks at is the fact that the Census Bureau, in measuring household income, does not count government transfer payments that aren't paid in cash or cash equivalent as income to the recipient. So if you get food stamps where you get a debit card, you go to the grocery store, you buy groceries, the government pays for it, the Census Bureau does not count that as your income. It also doesn't count it in measuring whether you're eligible for welfare or not. The same is true for Medicaid, where government pays the health care bill, rent subsidies. And just to give you a quick rundown, Kent, a welfare recipient today can receive $51,849 in government benefits that do not count as income.
Wow.
Government doesn't take, when you get a refundable tax credit, even though it's a check from the Treasury, the government, the Census Bureau does not count that check as income because they don't take into account taxes in their measure of income. So you can get a refundable child tax credit for $3,400, a refundable earned income tax credit of $7,152, food stamps of $5,200, housing subsidies of $9,400, utility subsidies of $877, Medicaid, which costs $16,000 a year, free meals at school, $3,100, and TANF, which is a payment from the government to people that have children. So your income can be you earn 25 and still be counted as poor. You can have an income of $76,908 a year, 3 times the poverty rate, and still be counted by the census and by the welfare programs as being poor.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is incredible.
You're talking almost 77,000,
Yeah, so that puts you firmly
in poverty.
And you're not, and it's not taxable.
Wow.
Okay, so the average family in the American middle class probably makes $85,000 or $90,000, but they got to pay taxes on it. This is $76,908. It's not taxable, and it's stunning.
It is.
So I have tried now. Beginning when I wrote the book, I tried to get the Trump administration interested in making census tell people how much income of lower income Americans, how much income they're getting from government that's not being counted as their income. And I had no success in getting that done. And then for 4 years during the Biden administration, they were completely uninterested. They raised all this spending. And then now I'm trying to get the OMB in the new Trump administration to start by saying to the Census Bureau, you got to count all payments and all tax credits as income to the recipients.
Right.
And then saying to all these welfare agencies, and there are over 100 of them, over 100 federal welfare programs where you get benefits based on being poor.
There's over 100 welfare benefit programs.
At the federal level.
Yeah, at the federal level, much less what they get from state.
But the states and the local governments also provide benefits.
You know, I mean, that's an incentive. That's an incentive to be poor.
Well, let me just give you a figure. If we just took the amount of money we spend on welfare and gave it in a cash payment to everybody who the Census Bureau says is poor, they'd be getting $77,000 a year, even if they didn't earn a penny.
Wow!
And we would we spend $1.4 trillion. That's with a T. $1 trillion a year on welfare, and if we simply gave the amount of money to poor people that it would take to raise their income level to where we no longer count them as poor, we could reduce the deficit by 2/3 in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, this is a huge, and so we're talking about in Minnesota, where people have gotten confused between immigration and welfare fraud. There's huge welfare fraud in Minnesota that has nothing to do with immigrants. I mean, there's a big group of immigrants involved in it, but there are a huge number of other people involved in it. And it's big, and we ought to prosecute every one of them and throw them off welfare. But that's peanuts compared to the fact that whatever you get in welfare, the welfare agencies don't count as income towards your eligibility for more payments.
It ought to be counted simply to show who's really in poverty and who's not.
Exactly. Well, and look at it this way. When you were in Congress, there was this constant clamor to raise welfare spending because you had all these poor people, okay? So we raise welfare spending, and then they don't count the welfare as income. And so they're still measured as poor, being poor. So 5 years later, the same clamor comes, and we keep raising the payments and not counting them. So the poverty rate, which when we were in Congress was about 12%, today is about 11%. And yet we're paying $1.4 trillion in welfare benefits. I mean, it'd be funny if it weren't so pitiful.
Oh, I mean, it's terrible. You look at those numbers in what you have in your book, and that's really a good book. If somebody wants to understand the federal deficit and the welfare program and how they match up and complement each other, they need to get a copy of the book. But I thought it was excellent. It was well written. and that if you make economics exciting, you're the only guy I know that can do that, Gramm, and and I appreciate you doing it.
Well, listen, we got so many hardworking people out there in Texas, and they're paying taxes to support people that are, when they get all their benefits, as well off as a working family, and they're not breaking a sweat. And people sense it. And they don't know the numbers, but they realize there are a hell of a lot of people riding in the wagon, and the wagon's getting harder and harder to pull. If they really knew these numbers, it would be a huge issue. And I have argued to members of Congress that I sent the article to and urged them to look at this. If we made welfare reform the number one issue in the country, it would be a huge political issue.
It really
because
would.
People resent it.
You know, I've sent a copy of this to Jody Arrington, who used to work for me at Texas Tech. He was my chief of staff, and he's chairman of the budget committee, and that this is something they ought to really look at. And he's a big fan of yours, and I think they will look at it.
Yeah, look, he's a very good guy. I hate to see him retire.
I do, too. He's got one more year left. Had he not retired, he'd have 3 more years left as chairman of the budget committee, but he's got 1 more year left, and this would be a huge benefit.
Yeah, it'd be a feather in cap. If he led this effort, they'd be talking about him 25, 30 years from now.
Right. No, I agree. It is the biggest issue that we're facing. But the welfare spending was 1.25, you said?
1.4 trillion total.
I cut it a little short there. Sound like somebody who's working for Biden or something.
And it's the largest program. If you see everybody, here's what happens, Kent. When you start saying, well, we need to do something about the deficit, the first thing that people in Congress do is say, okay, how are you going to cut Medicaid? How are you going to cut Social Security? Well, Social Security is almost 90% funded by the payroll tax.
Yeah.
So that Social Security is costing the federal government out of general revenues only a relatively small amount of money. Welfare is 100% coming out of general revenues. That's the untold story. So the deficit is lower today than it would have been had there never been a Social Security Administration, because most of the time it's run surpluses and loan the government the money,
which they have not paid back.
Which they're getting close to paying back, but they haven't paid back. But the point is that where the problem is right now, not 10 years from now. As you know, in Congress, people want to debate what happened in the past, what's going to happen in the future. But they don't want to talk about the here and the now. Right. And the welfare problem is here and now.
Well, and you said that it would reduce the deficit,
by 2/3.
In how many years?
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
If you simply gave every person that is classified as being poor the amount of money that it would take to raise them out of poverty and applied the rest of what we're spending on welfare to reduce the deficit, you'd reduce the deficit by 2/3.
Have you been able to talk to the OMB people?
Yeah, I have. I've talked to Russ Vogt about it and tried to get him. See, they could issue an executive order and force the census to start counting these transfer payments as income. And once they count them as income, public opinion is going to be outraged when they realize how much money these people are getting. And then Congress needs to legislate and require that the welfare programs count these transfer payments as income in determining whether somebody is eligible for additional benefits.
Senator, this is one of the few things that I've seen, and maybe the only thing, that you could really attack the deficit in a quick basis.
That's right.
Everybody else has, need to reduce defense or Social Security or whatever. Yeah. And you can leave all that alone. And you're just saying, look, if we're giving you money, then that should be counted as your income.
Exactly.
If they had a job of doing nothing but moving stones around from place to place, this would count as income, and it would show that they were making money, and it should be that way. If they're getting the money, it should not be classified as free money, and that you're still in poverty, because what happens, they don't get out of poverty. They
never get out of poverty.
That's exactly right. They're doomed.
Unless they go to work.
Yeah.
And look, let me give you another figure that just breaks your back. When we started the war on poverty in 1965, 68% of all able-bodied prime work age persons in the bottom 20% of income earners worked. 68% worked.
Right.
Today it's 36%.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think that is? Well, if you can get $50,000 or $60,000 of benefits for nothing, and working, you got to pay taxes on what you earn. If you don't have any real skills or ambition, why would you work? The amazing thing is that 36% work.
That's amazing to me. That anyone, when they look at the numbers, if they look at the numbers, I mean, they've got friends, they know people that are edging the system and doing it in such a way they're making the same or almost the same as they are, and they're not going to work every day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's just not right. And look, if we were going to balance a budget, we'd have to do a lot of hard things. But we can do most of the work by doing something that nobody with a straight face can stand up and argue to an objective audience is something we ought to be doing.
That's exactly right. I mean,
I'd love to debate somebody on this issue.
They won't do it.
I had a guy, and I presented this at Harvard, and they introduced a well-known sociologist. And the best he could do is, well, look, you're counting Medicaid as income. You can't eat Medicaid. And my response is, of course, a working family's got to buy Blue Cross Blue Shield, and you can't eat it either. Yeah. But they buy it because they need it.
Yeah.
Okay? It's part of what they spend their income on. And if you look at the welfare program, the average family, lower middle income American family, spends over 60% of their income on food, rent, and health care. Okay? And all three of those things are given to, quote, poor people, and none of them are counted as income. I mean, just think about that.
It is a very easy solution. The people that are doing nothing and making from the government $75,000 a year, they're going to howl and
oh my God, yeah. And look, you could debate as to whether a family, an adult with two children at $25,273 is no longer poor. You can debate that.
Right.
But you can't debate that we should be giving that at $77,000 they're not poor.
No.
I mean, it's just not debatable.
You also
So,
mentioned in the article the number of people that were in lower incomes families in the 70s, 60s, and 70s that have now risen to the point that they're in the top 20%, which tells you that the American dream is alive and well, and if somebody's willing to work and work hard, they can move from the bottom to the top.
two people are talking here on this phone that did it.
That's exactly right. That's
I
exactly
mean, and
right.
I don't think either one of us is, so talented or genius or anything. I went to college because my mama pushed me every step of the way. My mother had worked in a cotton mill, and both of us, succeeded in America, just like most Americans succeed. The number I think I used was 62% of children who grew up in the bottom 20% of income families in America as adults are living today in families that are in a higher income bracket, including the top income bracket. In other words, 62% of children that grew up poor are no longer poor.
Yeah. They've moved
And
up.
that's in one generation.
I think back to he's talking about you and me, and I think one of my best friends at Texas Tech was Ed Whitaker, and no one in his family had ever been to college, and no one in my family had graduated from college, and that Ed went on to be CEO and chairman of the board of AT&T for 18 years, and then CEO and chairman of the board of General Motors for 5 years. And that those are some big numbers, but you can do that. And we're telling people by encouraging more welfare payment, we're trying to tell them and the young people that you can't do it, and that conning the government is a way of life, and that should not be a way of life.
Well, let me tell you something. You say it in an even harsher way. If my mama and everybody she knew had qualified for welfare, I wouldn't be talking to you on this call.
That's exactly
and
right.
Probably the same is true in your family.
Right.
Because welfare changes behavior. How many Ed Whitakers are there in poor families today that could go on and do great things but never will?
Right.
That's the question. Well, look at the talent we're wasting. People that have got ability, they just never discover it.
Yeah, they don't know there's opportunity out there.
Well, and you just don't know what talents they've got. My brother once was asked, when did you first discover that your brother had some real ability? And my brother Don, you met Don.
Oh, I know Don.
Said, well, I can honestly say that when we were growing up, the idea that Phil had real ability never went through my mind.
Only a brother. Only a brother.
Oh, Lord. Well, listen, Kent, this is a good message to get out. Thank you for helping to get it out. And you take care of yourself.
Okay,
and
one
remember,
last thing, just to clarify. You're saying that the fraud in Minnesota is nothing compared to what is happening nationally.
That what is happening in Washington, D.C., in the federal government.
Right.
That the greatest fraud in welfare, and there's a lot of it in every aspect of welfare, but the greatest fraud in welfare is in the federal government in Washington, D.C., when they give people benefits and they don't count them as income in determining what their income is and whether they're eligible for more benefits.
Right.
That's the fraud, big fraud.
Mention the book again. Title.
The book is entitled The Myth of American Inequality. If you go on Amazon, Google The Myth of American Inequality, or my name, Phil Gramm, funny spelling, Gramm, and up it'll pop. And it's cheap now. It's out in paperback. So it's just got all kinds of stuff about mobility, the ability of people to be born poor and die rich.
Right.
That's common in America.
Right.
We don't talk about it because it's so common.
That's exactly right. Senator, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Talk to you later. Bye.